right, so good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in from across the continent. We've got folks from Nova Scotia to California today. It is such a pleasure to have you all, and thank you so much for joining us here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. I know many of you have joined us before, but if you are new to us, we're all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And I am so excited, more excited than I usually am, because today we are kicking off an epic and amazing series in conjunction with the folks at HHMI Tangled Bank Studios, and particularly their Wild Hope series. So Wild Hope is about featuring the stories of the most inspiring, persevering people on planet Earth working to save species and habitats globally. It sort of underscores the fact that all conservation starts locally. You guys in your classes, wherever you're joining from today, can take tangible action to save these amazing places and creatures. And you guys are in for such a treat as we kick off this series, because we've got one of my favorite speakers of all time joining today. Now, before I introduce her, I want to note we are going to have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our Q&A, if you want to play along, a little 4-question quiz, test your understanding, have some fun, you can pull up kahoot.it and this game pin in a separate tab on your computer. We'd love to have you play along. And if you just want to yell out the answers in your classes, that is totally fine too. I will share that again in about 20 minutes, so stay tuned for that. Now, I'm so excited to welcome back one of our most featured speakers ever here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, Callie Broaddus. She is the CEO and founder of Reserva, the Youth Land Trust. Her work is to make sure that youth, kids like you, a little bit older, have the opportunity to work towards conservation in Ecuador, one of the most special places on planet Earth and beyond. I'm going to share all the information about Reserva at the end of this broadcast. If you want to keep up with the amazing stuff they've got on the go, stay tuned for all of that as well. But without further ado, I'm going to welcome in Callie, say hello, and then share a little bit about her Wild Hope special that we are doing this program in partnership with. So welcome in, Callie. Hello.
Hello. So nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too, and you look like you're in this like epic rustic cabin thing. It's like the best backdrop I've seen in some time, and I'm like an aficionado.
Believe it or not, this is where I grew up. My family home was built in 1734, so it's old for the United States.
I'm in Newfoundland, and I'm in a 1924 house, and I thought that was old and crusty, but your place is incredible. Like Abe Lincoln looks like he hewed that out of logs sometime in the past, which is awesome. Callie, as we said, we're going to dive in with everything about the work you do with Reserva, Wild Hope, everything else. But if you're good, I'm going to play a little clip to sort of set the stage for our rights of nature and the work you do to begin.
Good, cool. Good to go. Go for it.
Here we go, everybody.
So here we have a beautiful Anolis Dracula, also referred to as South American chameleons.
You excited?
Yeah. Because there are a lot of new species.
Finding new species is actually relatively common. Every expedition I've been on, we've come home with a list of potential new species to science.
Aquí tenemos una ranita del género Pristimantis. No sabemos exactamente qué especie es. Entonces es importante tomar fotos, tomar un punto GPS, usar esta aplicación que es iNaturalist. Es muy divertido.
We only know of about 2 million species on the planet out of an estimated 8 to 9 million. So we've only scratched the surface of what lives here.
These small species have one chance to be recognized, not only as an object. They are subjects. All right.
That is one of my favorite facts about all of science. Like every chance I get to feature the fact that when we go to the deep sea or when we go to the rainforest, we find new species. It's like, you know, and anyone can take part in that. If you bring youth volunteers down to Dracula, like you can find new things, which is wild and crazy.
Totally.
I am going to put myself off screen because no one's here to hear me talk. We want to hear about this amazing story you've got on the go, and I'll leave you to share a little bit of Wild Hope with everybody today, Callie.
Okay, and I'm going to start my stopwatch here because I'm notorious for running long. So, well, thank you very much. And it's still so bizarre to be on kind of the wrong side of the camera for me on that show because I'm normally a photographer. But I'm so glad that Wild Hope is getting this message out there in such an effective way. So thank you for having me. As Jesse said, my name is Callie Broaddus. I'm here in Virginia right now. This is where I grew up. I live in Washington, D.C. And before I start, I just want to make sure that I thank some of the folks who have really made a difference in our work. And Jesse, can you just confirm, is everything showing okay on the
Yes, it looks perfect.
Okay, great. So there are a couple organizations who have participated in our work and who have enabled us to conserve land in Ecuador, where I'm going to be, what I'm going to be speaking about. So Rainforest Trust, the National Biodiversity Institute in Quito, the Orchid Conservation Alliance, and our friends in Basel. Our local partners are Fundación Ecominga. And then, of course, thanks to HHMI Tangled Bank Studios for letting us share this story. So a little bit about me. I'm just going to step back and why I care about nature in the first place. As I said, I grew up out here in Virginia and was really lucky to have access to nature in my backyard and a family that enjoyed spending time outside. It was a huge part of my childhood to try to get my friends to care about nature the same way I did. Maybe in your classrooms you can have a little hand raised here. This was my club when I was in fourth grade. I started a club called the Nature Nuts, and my nickname was Pistachio. And I had these rules. So everyone put your hands up. And as I read through these rules, I want you to put your hands down if you no longer qualify. Okay, so you need to be in fourth or fifth grade. That's kind of a silly rule. You need to have never purposefully killed any form of nature without a valid reason, like getting, bitten by a mosquito. You need to love every kind of nature, respect it, not hold anything against, spiders for biting or bees for stinging. They can't help it. And now this is kind of a tricky one, but you need to hold everything that's in your will. Do you even have a will? All of your stuff, your furniture, your jewelry, your house, all of your money, and make sure that that is dedicated to nature. That one is a little bit of an ask. And I'd say that I probably don't even qualify for this club anymore. But I do still think it's really important that we all recognize that having hope for nature is something really practical that we can all take part in. We can all dedicate some part of ourselves, our time, our resources to protecting nature. And it's not, being environmental doesn't have to be such a restrictive club. It's something everyone can do. So when I grew up, I'm still growing up, but as I got older, I kept taking photos and became a wildlife photographer. And as I documented the wildlife I was around, I came to understand that many of the species I was photographing were severely under threat. For example, this is a species of tortoise called the geometric tortoise in South Africa, and it's critically endangered. There are only 700 or 800 of them left in the wild. And this is just part of this global context that species extinction is happening at 1,000 times the natural rate. It's not supposed to be happening this fast. And what I realized is that not only is extinction happening way faster than it's supposed to, but when people donate to causes, not enough of those donations are going to land conservation, to protecting the habitat that these species need to survive. So there's a mismatch between the problems we're facing in the environment and the resources that we are dedicating as individuals to preventing these crises from getting worse. So I teamed up with a 16-year-old girl named Bella Lack back in 2019, and we decided to launch an organization called Reserva, the Youth Land Trust. And basically, we were just looking for other young people, didn't matter how old they were, 26 and under, but we weren't carding, who wanted to work together to prove that young people, we didn't just have to strike. We could do something practical today that would help protect nature. We decided to form an organization called Reserva, the Youth Land Trust, and we're working together to empower young people to make a measurable difference. And that's a really key word. We want to be able to show that we've done something for threatened species and habitats. So we're working to conserve nature, to educate people about how they can do it and how to be better environmental leaders, and to share this work to inspire others through powerful storytelling to make sure that everyone can be part of this. Right now, we're about 100-something people from about 30 countries. We meet on Zoom twice a month, and we kind of plan our projects, and you know, we're figuring it out as we go along. This is some of our team. Our first project that we started in 2019, what we organized around was this idea to create the world's first entirely youth-funded nature reserve. We decided to work in Ecuador, and Ecuador this is South America. So it's that big country in the south of the globe, and Ecuador is on the west coast. And what you see here are 3 regions. There's the Chocó to the west, the tropical Andes, these big mountains in the middle, and then the Amazon is off to the east on the right of the screen. So our reserve, where we decided to work, is on these western slopes, these western parts of the Andes Mountains. And this is what you're looking at it from Google Earth. And it's called, there we go. It's in the tropical Andes biodiversity hotspot. And what's cool about that is this is actually the most unique biodiversity hotspot in the world. It has the highest level of endemism. That's endemism is a term that means species uniqueness. How special is that wildlife that lives nowhere else? So it's a really important area to protect. These are some of the animals and plants you can find if you just take a short walk on this reserve. So it's called Dracula Reserve, and the part that we funded is an expansion to a corridor that some of our partners have been working on for 10 years. It's not called Dracula because of the count. It's because of this species of orchid on the right-hand side. And you can see it has these long sepals that look kind of like the wings of a dragon. And I said species, I meant genus. So this genus of orchid, like a whole group of species, they all have this really cool characteristic, and you can find them at this reserve in Ecuador. So it's located in the very north of the country, as I showed on that previous map, right on the border of Colombia. And the way we went about doing it, about creating this youth-funded reserve, we didn't even know if it was really possible. So we kind of had to try everything. We had Instagram concerts with Olivia Rodrigo and speakers like Bertie Gregory. We held all sorts of live events where we tried to share what we were doing and just get people to join in, like Global BioFest with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, one of our favorites. We spoke at international conventions like Climate COPs. We put out resources for educators. We had trivia events with celebrities. We had people running 5Ks virtually and making handmade medals, doing bake sales, pretty much everything you could imagine, selling their old clothes. And all together, we have, over the course of the last few years, not only protected that first reserve, created that youth-funded nature reserve, but also expanded it by another 1,050 acres. So on the whole, we've protected about 2,270 acres of land through youth action, either in whole or in part funded by young people and by young fundraisers, which is a tremendous amount of biodiversity and wildlife all in one spot. So we do that through fundraising. We also have to get down to the field and kind of collect the media that we use to help people feel engaged and make sure that young people aren't just engaged around the globe, but that our partner knows how to use young scientists and storytellers in the field, where they're so effective at collecting media and collecting data. This is one of our teams last year, and the work in the field is a little rough. This is one of the toilets that we had on an expedition. So we do our best to make it comfortable, but it is working in the middle of the rainforest. So what's the result of all this? Well, I hope you can hear the audio. This is what it sounds like. The reason we're doing all this is to protect this incredible forest. It's called a cloud forest because it's sort of like a high elevation rainforest. It's a rainforest that's super wet, super humid, and there it is. You can see the clouds. It's just up in the mountains. This is the reserve that young people, thousands of young people from all around the world have helped create and helped protect. But what is land protection. How do you protect a piece of land? Well, let's see. There we go. It's not as simple as just funding the purchase or buying a piece of land. The way that we did it was we raised funds, we granted them to a local partner, and our local partner over the last 10 years has been buying bit by bit by bit land from farmers who needed to make money off of their land, but didn't want to do that by farming. They wanted to sell their land so that it was conserved to protect their water resources and the forests and the wildlife they depend on, while they farm a smaller section of their land. So I just want to clarify, we don't own any land. We are helping an Ecuadorian organization buy land from people who own it and who want to sell it, so that they can hold it in safely, conserved forever. But it's not that simple. So these are some of the plots that are part of Dracula Reserve. These colored ones are actually prospects, so that's not part of it. But all these gray plots, actually the one under my mouse, if you can see that, is the first reserve we created in 2021. And then the expansion that we did earlier this year is actually down here. This is an old map, so it doesn't show it. But each of these little parcels, while it's now owned by a conservation organization, that's just the first step in protecting. And the reason for that is because the government owns the land or owns the resources that are underneath these parcels. And what you see on the left here is it's a rock. And I don't know if you can also see me on screen, but I have part of this rock here. And it's a rock that contains minerals, traces of minerals, gold, pyrite, silver, copper. You'd have to get it analyzed to find out. But mining companies from around the world are looking for these minerals so that they can make the technology we use, make renewable energy, make jewelry, make all sorts of things, and even just put the resources into a bank and let them sit there. And these mining companies have concessions granted by the government. These are all these red boxes that are drawn over top of the land that we're helping to protect. So if this land is owned by a conservation organization, that's one step. But the government can still come in and say, we want to be able to extract the gold that's underneath your land. And the problem is that can have a major impact on the forest and the water that lives above those minerals. So unfortunately, even though we can buy land and in theory protect it, it's not quite that easy. The good thing is that mining companies can't just come in and take gold off your land. They have to have permission to access, to explore for gold first. And that's where we have the upper hand. Our partner will never grant them access to explore on these properties. But that doesn't mean that they won't just go on anyway. So protecting isn't just about buying. We also have to have people on the ground. This is Milton. He's an amazing park guard. We have to have people on the ground who are every single day going out and patrolling those borders, walking across that incredibly difficult landscape, that super mountainous landscape, and making sure that nobody is breaking the law, that no one is just sneaking onto the land and, exploring for gold, even though they don't have permission. Because unfortunately, that has happened. This is a photo I took in October where we went down to our new plot, the place we just funded the purchase of, 1,050 acres. And our park guards, including Milton, found miners actively working and documented them actively destroying a canyon on that property. So even though we owned it and it was theoretically protected and they didn't have access to or permission to explore, they did anyway. So you can see that this is kind of open. It shouldn't look like this. You shouldn't really even be able to see the stream from above. And the mining exploration caused all this erosion and even a small landslide to occur. So when that happens, what can we do? Well, number one, we can document it. But number two, we can look to the country's constitution and the legal ways that we could protect and defend nature. So in 2008, Ecuador did something really cool. They put a line into their constitution, their brand new constitution, that granted nature its own rights. Just like you and I have rights, in Ecuador, nature has the right to evolve, to persist, to exist, to regenerate. And when that right is threatened, people can go to the courts and defend nature against the people who are threatening those rights. And that's exactly what happened. In 2022, there was a mining project that was supposed to happen in this Los Cedros protected area. And just like at Dracula, there were boxes drawn, and mining companies wanted to go in underneath the protected area and explore for gold and all that sort of thing. They wanted to open a mine. And because people rose up and said, you can't do that, our Constitution doesn't allow it, because this area is supposed to have the right to exist, and you would be threatening that, they won. The mining project wasn't allowed to go forward. And that's happened again another time since then. So we really believe that this legal concept it's here to stay, and it's really going to work. So, but we're not lawyers, and you don't have to be a lawyer to take part in defending nature and contributing to this this legal defense of nature. So what do? Well, we, through youth action, through young scientists, young storytellers, we go into the field. We get extra eyeballs on the ground. So of course that also helps prevent people from breaking the law. But we document everything we can so that if we ever do have to go to the courts, we have evidence that shows that this particular area is unique, and that a mining project or any kind of extractive project would threaten its constitutional rights to exist and persist and regenerate. We do it through scientific documentation. This is Marco taking a picture of a part of a new species of orchid. And this particular species is only known to exist on this new plot of land that we just funded, that we just protected, where that illegal mining damage just happened. So this is one example of a piece of evidence that, well, it's scientific evidence to us normally, it now becomes legal evidence. It's legally, this species may not survive if a mining company were to open a project in this area. So scientific evidence becomes legal evidence. This is another huge find that we had last year and confirmed again this year. So this is a plump toad. The genus is Osornophrine, and this is an endangered species. It was actually put on the red list of endangered species last year, categorized as endangered. And that means that Ecuador really can't allow any extractive projects to happen where this frog or this toad lives. And that's because it's a very good chance that if something were to damage its habitat, this species may go extinct. And it's super cute. I have to say, this is one of my favorite animals on the reserve. It's called a plump toad, and it can't hop. So if you've ever seen a frog or a toad that can't hop, I'd be very surprised, but this one can't. It lives in the trees, and it doesn't even have a tadpole stage. It's a really cool, unusual, and cute little guy. We also have 400 species of orchids, many of which are only known to exist on one side of one part of this reserve, like one mountain. They're very unique, and each one of these species we document is legal evidence to help protect this reserve under Ecuador's rights of nature. This is one of my favorite creatures on the reserve, and I'm going to play this little video. This is actually a near threatened species, so it also has an elevated threat status according to the IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. And this one's a baby. It's called a mountain coati, and this little baby is only about the size of a pine cone, maybe a large pine cone. I don't know if you could hear its cute little squeaks, but it's just a remarkable species to be protecting on this reserve. And it was the first time that we had documented it on this site. So having just that encounter by going on a hike and recording it on a camera, that's a legal piece of evidence that we can use to say, if you harm this place, you're harming this protected species. So scientific data collection, evidence collection, that's one thing. But the other half of it is social pride and social influence and people who are caring about this place locally, nationally, around the world. I'm gonna speed through this because I know I want to get to the Kahoot. But all the work that young people have been doing to document and shout about and care about this place has really picked up and showed people that they have a treasure here. This is the former mayor of the county where the reserve is, declaring the Dracula Reserve as a locally protected area. They took all these pictures that we have from the reserve and plastered them everywhere, all over their trucks and on billboards. This is a campaign where kids wrote letters, kids in Ecuador and from all around the world wrote letters that we matched with money, actually, to protect this reserve, and we delivered them to the Ecuadorian Minister for Environment at the UN. So getting national attention on this reserve. And then international attention. So we had a 10-year-old boy in the UK deliver a speech to the entire United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity at their closing ceremony last year in Montreal. And he shared about why young people are putting attention in this area. And then global attention. So projects like Wild Hope, these TV series, they help everyone access this information and care about these projects. And in the end, what it's going to do is it's going to help us preserve these places and all the weird and wild things you find there. So before I stop, I'm just going to play this little video of probably the weirdest thing I've ever seen at Dracula Youth Reserve.
Hi, I'm Izzy, an incredibly professional zoologist, and here in front of me is Worm. Big Worm. No other way to describe it than really big worm.
So this is about a 6-foot long worm, and with that, I'm going to stop my screen share.
Callie, first of all, thank you for incorporating that. I appreciate you immensely. I saw this worm on her Instagram a while back, and my jaw dropped. It's really hard to flabbergast me in nature anymore, but that worm did the trick. Like, it is really freaky and awesome.
Nothing has ever surprised me more crossing the road.
That is quite the story. Honestly, I get the chance to hear from a lot of amazing conservationists every single day in this job. Your stories are always so inspiring and impactful. And honestly, kids, at the end of this broadcast, there's going to be a bunch of things sent to your teachers. If you guys want to do a letter writing campaign of your own, if you want to donate to Reserva, if you want to help out in any way to help contribute to the amazing conservation work that they're doing, we'd love to hear about it. So there's going to be lots of ways to take part in that way. So stay tuned for all that. And first, as Callie mentioned, we're going to dive in with our Kahoot together, and then we're going to do Q&A. Ms. Swangstu, I'm coming to you first in Q&A. I know you guys have limited time. YouTubers, please share in the chat as well. We'd love to hear from you. But we're going to get underway. And if you're new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get. And what you win is Callie and I's everlasting respect. So that is what you're playing for. It's pretty cool as a prize, I think. But let's dive in. And Callie, if you want to help us out with any of these answers as we get in the final few seconds of each one, you can chime in with hints, perhaps. Here we go. Where's Callie? We talked about this from the beginning. I want some quick answers on this one. Panama, Ecuador, Costa Rica, or Kenya. All beautiful, wonderful places, I might add. But only one is where our Dracula Youth Reserve is. So sneak in those answers, and we'll see how you do. Every time, Callie, I want to skip all my holidays and just come to the reserve every time I see the footage and pictures you share.
I gotta say, whoever was the one person who said Panama, this was a bit of a trick question because I'm going to say this here. On February 7th, we're announcing our next project, and it's going to be a marine project in Panama. So that was a prescient little mistake there.
That was, and the first use of the word prescient in any of our broadcasts in history. So thank you for that. I've only ever seen that written. Very cool, guys. I'm using Jaguar as our lead. Are there Jaguars in Ecuador? Yes. I think
yes, there are. Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, historically, they would have been at Dracula Reserve, but and they've been spotted there in the past.
Got to get them back sooner than
later. hoping to get him back.
When you get that Panama Reserve up and running, we're going to have you on to talk about that, needless to say. Real worm, we just thought. Yes. 4 of you are like, no. Like, I still don't believe it. It's a lie. It's absolutely wrong. It is a real worm. It's ridiculous. All right. Prairie jaguar, another jaguar. That's interesting. Takes our lead as we go to our third question. Every time we search, we find new species in the rainforest. This is, if you take, we've got this amazing Wild Hope backdrop. We've got all of Callie's work with Reserva. But if you take away one thing from this broadcast, I always like to harp on this. Like, this is such a cool fact. So
yeah, I have to give a caveat, though. We can only do this because we have people who know what's new and what isn't. If you just walk in there, you might have no idea. But because we go in with experts, we've been lucky enough that this one is true for us.
Yep.
But that's a gray area, that one, because some people don't.
I'm going to skip our leaderboard, but this one, there's no right answer to this. I just really wanted to know, because we've never talked about the rights of nature in any of our broadcasts in 8 years. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are. No right or wrong answer. Nature should have rights, yes or no? I think we're going to get a lot of answers on one side of this, but it's not something that we've ever asked kids before. So I'm really curious what you think. Certainly our YouTubers are chiming in with Rights of Earth, Bill of Rights 2.0. So you guys are on the positive side. But let's see. Okay, there you go. I'd say 80% then say yes, and 20% of you were going to convince slowly but surely.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, here's our leaderboard, Callie, and then we're going straight to Oregon, Ohio. Miss Swankstu's class, you guys are going to be our first class for questions. Milton Middle School, Miss Broaddus, we're coming to you in Louisiana, California right after. Our winner is Prairie Jaguar.
Nice.
Very suitable given our spot. Are any of these folks? Let us know where you're joining from. And we're going to sneak in before you head off, guys. Miss Swankstu's group, unmute your mic. Come say hi. Hello. Hello. Welcome in.
Okay.
Okay.
Say it.
What is the coolest, in your opinion, what's the coolest thing you've seen, and was it endangered or not?
Ooh, no pressure.
Okay. I mean, other than the worm, which is obviously so cool, I would say that my favorite thing that I've seen is a little salamander. I'm going to see if I can quickly pull one up. A salamander called a bolitoglossa. And I'm quickly pulling one up because I know I have one here. Okay, I'm just going to open the first image that comes up on my search results here. This is a bolitoglossa. It is a lungless arboreal salamander. So it's and it's supposed to have the fastest tongue in the animal kingdom, which is pretty amazing. And what's so cool is this particular salamander is actually a new species to science. So it has no lungs, it breathes through its skin, it lives in the trees, it's incredibly cute. It walks kind of like this. It kind of paddles in slow motion, and then it can move super fast. So I think this is one of the coolest I've ever seen.
That is very cool. Also, thank you for the demonstration. I always appreciate when people get into the bodies of the animal. And also, who measures the tongue speed of animals? I want that
I have
job.
no idea. I have not independently verified that. Just clarification.
Great question to kick us off. Guys, all right. Well, let's head to Miss Kizier's class, Milton Middle School. Come on in, guys. If you want to unmute your mic, you're good to go. Hello. Hi, guys. Nice classroom.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the coolest classroom I've ever seen.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for Callie? Oh, your audio's not working. You're in, and we hear you, but we don't hear voices. So, you know what? Type it in the chat, and we've said hello, and I'll take your question in just 2 seconds. I'm sorry that it's not working 100%, but so nice to have you guys in, and yes, coolest classroom of all time. Well, while you're typing that in, I'm going to head to Oxnard, California, Miss Broaddus' class. Come on in, guys. Hey.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Whoa.
All right, come on up.
What's the most endangered species that you've seen?
Oh, really great question. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if that geometric tortoise I showed earlier might be the most endangered, but I think that the correct answer, I'm going to give you another picture here. I think the correct answer is going to be the Atelopus coine, which is, okay, and again, I'm just going to bring up the first image I find on my computer. Share screen. It is a it is a stubfoot toad. So it's actually quite tiny. It's only about maybe the length of like this segment of my finger. So it's only about that big. And they're incredibly sensitive to environmental changes. And we only know of about maybe 100 individuals that are living in Dracula Reserve, and it's currently the only known population of this species. There are 2 populations of it within Dracula Reserve, and actually one of them is slightly outside. So really only one protected population. And this guy is facing threats by climate change, pollution, habitat loss, and even poaching. You know, people see a really cool animal and they think, I want one. And that's a mentality we have got to stop, because a lot of species are endangered by that mentality of, I love it, I want to have it. So yeah, it's a beautiful species, and it's probably the most endangered one I've ever photographed.
It's a beautiful little frog. Your photography is just spectacular. And I want to note, I think kids' stereotype of a scientist is that we all know the Latin names of everything. And I was like quiz kid when I was a kid, so I knew the Latin names of a lot. You do. That is so rare and it's so cool.
I am but a mimic. I'm just I'm a photographer, I'm a conservationist, but I work with scientists. And so I refer to them by however I hear them.
Perfect. We're going to head, you know what, Miss Kizier's class, I'm going to take your 2 questions from the chat in a minute, but I know Miss Swangchu's class has to go, so I'm going to head to them for a really quick one, and then we'll take both of yours in a second. So come on back in. Oregon, Ohio. Hello.
Are people the only ones threatening the plants and animals on Ecuador?
That's a really great question. So we know that most of the big challenges that nature faces are because of humans. So whether it's human-driven climate change, human-driven species like habitat loss, human-driven pollution, whether it's plastics or chemicals, or human-driven invasive species introductions. So species that maybe they live somewhere in Asia, and then when we buy products from Asia, they kind of hitchhike, take a ride, and get introduced here, or even are released from the pet trade, wherever you may be. Those are all threats that are really our fault. The only natural threats that I can think of are maybe there's an area that is a species that's confined to a small area, and a landslide happens, or some kind of natural disaster happens and wipes out that species. But that's something that has happened naturally for a long, long time. So the only way to really explain this 1,000 times the natural rate of extinction is because of human action. That's a great question.
That is a great question. And I want to note, just because you have to go, folks, in a second, we are going to have some really cool surveys after this. So if you want to help out, your answers can literally help shape the future of Wild Hope as a series, and the amazing folks at the Tangled Bank Studios folks are doing. So I really encourage you to check those out when we're done. And if you want to find out some more about what Callie and her team do to help protect animals from all these threats, human and otherwise, Reserva, YLT.org. Yes, Callie.
Oh, there are some questions in the chat. Can I answer
those? I'm coming. I'm taking them. The one class has to go, so I'm gonna come back to them. Milton Middle School, your first question is amazing. A question I so wanted. So how can we do something like this? What you're doing with Reserva in Louisiana? They have a really unique natural environment. They sure do. Louisiana's amazing. You guys are so lucky. And so they're unsure of how they can help conserve their environment. What would you recommend?
Okay, well, so when you talk about protecting habitat in specific areas, particularly in the United States, where every state has a different rule about how things happen, what you can do is go to your county government or your parish government in Louisiana and find out what their processes are for protecting the land that the government owns, and find out what processes they have and what what incentives they have to help individual people, private landowners, protect their land or restore it to its natural state. And I know that in Louisiana, they have a really interesting process. I can't remember what it's called. It's called like CCI or something. But basically, it is an incentive for landowners to rewild their landscape and turn, for example, farmland back into natural habitat. And the government will actually pay landowners to do that. So Louisiana, you have a particular way that you can go about this. And that could involve approaching your local government. It could involve making a campaign to help local landowners, particularly farmers, be aware of options they have to restore nature on their property. And then, of course, the main the main thing that you have that other people don't, that people who are older don't, is you are meeting all the time as a group, as a bunch of kids together, and you have the power to do things together. So you've got a team. You can raise funds together. You can write messages together, and teamwork honestly makes the biggest difference when you have a plan. But also reach out to me. I'm happy to help you with specifics.
I was going to say, everything you've ever done in your career, all the youth that you brought together through all these ways that you showcased in that presentation, like that is exactly what you guys can do as a class. And I mean, kids these days, you know the facts. You're so vested. I think everyone assumed it would be like Callie and I's generation that would be doing all the leading work. And some of us are pretty amazing like Callie. But you kids, like, you know everything. You're so vested. It's so amazing to see. I will do a plug too for a topic that we're covering in our next Wild Hope session as well. So February 8th at 11 Eastern, growing gardens in your schoolyard, in your backyard. You can grow native pollinators, pollinating plants, and you'll help provide habitat and food for some really cool local wildlife. So that's a really easy thing that a lot of kids can do as well. And of course, I'll share some more options when we're done. Milton, I'm going to take your second question as well here from the chat. And then Ms. Broaddus, we're going to wrap up with you. Milton, you guys want to know, have you ever gotten sick from an animal? You're out in the field and they bite you, sting you, poison you, nothing?
I haven't gotten sick, which is great. I use really strong repellent when I go into lowland areas. But I'll say this summer, I was in Colombia exploring lowland rainforest, and I wore really strong repellent. My colleague didn't, and he wound up getting not malaria, but he got that earlier this year. What's the other one? Starts with a D. Dengue. He got dengue fever from mosquitoes. I've gotten 2 snake bites. Neither of them were bad. So the worst I get are itchy bites, mainly.
So usually when kids ask a question like, have you ever been injured? Like 99% of the time in these broadcasts, they're like, no, never, I prepare. And you're like, well, my colleague got dengue fever and I've been bitten by a bunch of snakes, but otherwise it's golden. That's very funny. Great question, Milton. Ms. Broaddus, we're going to wrap up with you guys. Thank you guys so much as an audience. Again, I'm going to be setting a whole bunch of great stuff. Wild Hope TV, at Wild Hope TV, reservawildT.org. Lots to explore and discover. Stay tuned for all those surveys, but we're going to wrap up in California. Come on in, folks. Welcome in. Hey.
What was the poisonous animal you ever see?
Ooh. Okay. Love that question. Hold on just a sec, because I'm going to bring up another photo.
Sure. By the way, the fact you have all these pictures is amazing, and that you knew the nuances of Louisiana conservation was incredible. So thank you for that as well. Very fun.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
Here we go. I'm as excited as you are, kids. Honestly, I have no idea what she's going to show. This is very fun. Here we go. It is. Ooh,
boom.
Beauty.
So this guy, this is it's called a fer-de-lance viper. It's a super, super big one. And in fact, there was a while there where we thought this might be a new species to science because it was really distinct from other fer-de-lance vipers we'd seen. Bothrops asper is the scientific name. But it is responsible for the deaths of some people, but more often it's a bite that people get, and if they have access to anti-venom, then they can survive it. But this is definitely one of the biggest challenges, and one of the reasons that when we do go to the field, I take it really, really seriously that we always wear tall rubber boots. We look where we're hiking. We're not messing around. We're not playing hide and seek in the forest. No, There is really dangerous stuff out there. We have to be professional about our work. And then when we're photographing something like this, I'm always working with trained scientists who know exactly how this species should behave, how close I can get to it safely, and who are watching to make sure nothing irregular happens. So yeah, we have to be very careful when we're working with species that are venomous.
What a great snake. I'm a huge snake fan. I liked your list in the very beginning with your to be a nature nut, like squishy, gooey, slimy animals. Like that's the best part ever, because snakes and spiders and frogs and stuff are the best. Callie, before we wrap up today, thank you all. Thank you so much for this amazing broadcast. Is there any final message you want to share with our kids about what they can do to get involved or learn more, or anything you want them to leave with today?
Yeah, I would like to say, I think that if you ever feel overwhelmed by the number of challenges that we face, whether it's plastic pollution or climate change or biodiversity loss, think small. I think most people will tell you think big. I want to tell you to think small. Think about what you personally have the greatest ability to impact. Maybe you are particularly talented at taking pictures. Maybe you're particularly good at hanging out with your friends and making everyone happy. You can use whatever skill you have to impact something, and you create change on something that is local to you. So you don't need to solve every single problem out there. There are a lot of people all around the world who are all taking action. So try not to get overwhelmed. Focus on what you are best positioned to do, and you will be part of the change that we need to see. So, yeah.
That's the essence of Wild Hope. And what a beautiful message to leave us on. Classes, if you do take action in your class, if you start writing letters, if you plant that garden, if you talk to your local parish or community hall or whatever, we'd love to hear about it. That's what this entire series is all about. So a big thank you to you for joining us all. YouTubers will say farewell to you. Miss Broaddus, we're going to bring you guys in to say a thank you and goodbye. Callie, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye for now, guys. We'll see you all soon. Thank you.